What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate rolling on until 7 p.m. today. We truly do appreciate you making us part of your day. Could not do it without you. Appreciate you oh so much. Here's how you guys can take part in the show. You can give us a ring at 844-326-3663. You can hit us on the text line at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. And you can hit us on Twitter at the Fan Upstate, at Mark Ryan on air, MARC Ryan on air, at Diesel on radio. Coming up on the show today, my friends, we have your Heisman Trophy voter, your favorite Heisman Trophy voter, because he is your only Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beard, joining us at 4 o'clock p.m. this afternoon. We are chasing a potential interview with a very special guest. We will let you know if that comes down the pike today. Also, we've got the Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. We've got the top 5 at 5. The teams you love to see lose. This year's version. Who is on that list? We will tackle that on the show today as well, and so much more between the hours of 3 and 7 p.m. this afternoon. Folks, last night we had the NBA draft, and some of you might say, well, Mark, I'm not a huge NBA draft guy. And I want to share this with you. I did receive a bit of a scoop today on something that I wanted to bring you guys into. There is a very, very sad and cautionary tale, right? A very sad cautionary tale about one G.G. Jackson and about all that went into what's going on with Gigi. Now, I did the Daily Crow, the Spurs Up show earlier today with Chris Phillips. And Chris Phillips says, man, like his take is essentially, it's a bad look for G.G. Jackson. It's a bad look for Lamont Paris. And it's a bad look for South Carolina basketball that this projected lottery pick went in the middle of the second round. And I said, man, this is nobody's fault except G.G. Jackson himself. This is a bed that he made, right? This is a bed that he's got the wrong people in his ear, giving him the wrong advice. He's got far too many yes men in his corner, all right? And he declared early for the draft. And I'll tell you, guys, I had a national personality. I was having a conversation. The date on this was March 11th, okay? And I was having a conversation with somebody that will remain nameless, okay? But it's a national personality. What do I want to say here? I'll just tell you that. A national personality. And the national personality says, Mark, I really wish the adults hadn't pushed Gigi to reclassify. He would have been a top 5 pick if he stayed in his class. I think he's going to get lost now. This was a national personality that told me this on March 11th. And I didn't know what he meant by getting lost because at that time, G.G. Jackson was a projected top 10 pick. He was telling me this on March 11th. And I'm like, okay, what does lost mean? He goes 13th? No. He falls out of the lottery. He falls out of the mid-first round. He falls out of the late first round. He falls out of the beginning of the second round and slides all the way to the middle of the second round. I wrote back at the time, I said, interesting take, man. He seemed lost much of the season, if I'm honest with you. All right. The same contact today, I asked him if I could screenshot and tweet out that take today. And he asked that I not do that out of respect to an 18-year-old kid who's going through a hard time right now, something I totally understand. But then he told me the following. he said, Mark, thanks for asking. You didn't have to do that, but I appreciate it. I'd rather not do anything that feels like it's piling on the kid. And he says, I don't know if I told you the story, but G.G. Jackson never wanted to reclassify and never wanted to go to USC. His mom had her hand out, perhaps ruined her son's life. Now, I'll share this with you guys, and I'll share this with Diesel. I would prefer if we don't podcast that part of it, okay? Because I don't want to, like the contact, I don't want to be part of mudslinging on an 18-year-old who is going through a very, very difficult time. But you remember what happened here. The whole thing with G.G. Jackson felt like a race to become a millionaire as fast as possible. Wanted to go to UNC, committed to UNC. Wanted to reclassify so he could go to UNC earlier. UNC said, no, we only have a spot for you in your natural class, in the natural order of things. That's where we have the scholarship for you that year. He said, no, I want the money faster. So I'm going to go to South Carolina for a year because I'm not a student athlete anyway. I'm just counting down the days to get to the NBA draft. And that's exactly what he did. And he was pouting and he acted like a guy at South Carolina that acted like he was too good for the scene there, right? Diesel and I were talking about this a little bit off the air. And, his pouting and his bad attitude and his benching and his Instagram live posts. And again, guys, I am not here to trash on a 17, 18-year-old kid. I think he's got a ton of growing up to do. I think he's got an unbelievably athletic body that he needs to grow into. And I think he's got the wrong influences in his ear to allow him to be placed in this situation. Remember, my contact told me that had he not reclassified, he'd have been a top 5 pick next year. And he's telling me he was going to get lost when he was still a projected top 10 pick. And guess what? He did get lost. He could see the train coming a mile away, and it's exactly what happened. And it's a cautionary tale to you, to me, to all these other kids out there, man. Like, you got to be ready for the NBA. You got to have the right people in your ear. You have to have good influences in your life. It's not a race to collect the NBA paycheck, okay? It's a thing that happens when you're ready. But with a guy like this, Diesel, that's a consensus number 1, number 2, number 3 player in America, a lot of times there's a race. Hey, you could be a millionaire in 2 years. You're 16 today. You could be a millionaire in 2 years. Here's what you have to do. You got to reclassify. You got to do this. He wasn't ready for all this. He made some really bad decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a story as old as time, having people in your ear who want things from you. So they need you to get yours quickly so that they can get theirs from you. Happens all the time. Anybody that's set to make some money, it happens constantly. So it's not like that's a new story of any kind. But this is something Josh Pate said a while back that bugs me because people pick and choose when they want to use the word kid versus when they want to use the word adult. You got young men who are legally adults, who are making an awful lot of money from name, image, and likeness, and are set to make a lot of money going forward as they enter their professional careers. They have been exposed to big boy decisions for a number of years at this point. I understand that it's maybe not entirely fair to ask someone to make big boy decisions when their brain chemistry is still adjusting and still changing and still maturing. But people pick and choose when you call these young men kids versus when you call them adults. You go out on the football field, you make a big hit, and let's say, man, that's a grown-ass man. But the same guy can make a dumb decision 12 hours later after the game, get in a car wreck and kill somebody and say, oh, he's just a kid. Which is it? Are we treating college athletes who are making more money than just about anyone else on campus who's not their head coach? Are we treating them as adults, or are we treating them as kids? I have zero sympathy for G.G. Jackson. He had people in his ear telling him the right thing. He had coaches at North Carolina, that bastion of integrity that is the University of North Carolina, telling him, you need to wait. You need to just be patient. Please be patient. Wait one more year. You have the chance to be great. And then he's got another, he's got the angel on one shoulder, the devil on the other, saying, go now, go now, go now, go now. I don't have any sympathy for G.G. Jackson falling as far as he did. He was not a good teammate. He was not a good representative of the University of South Carolina. Did not hold himself and conduct himself well on the court or in his locker room. I don't have any problem with G.G. Jackson falling down. Schadenfreude be damned. It's the bet he made. He's got to lay in it.
Diesel, okay. So where I differ with you is I think it's okay to have empathy for the kid. Okay. But make no mistake about it. He is responsible for this. It is his bed. Now, to your point, brain chemicals, etc. Our brains are forming until we're 25. All right. At 25, our brains are fully formed. How can we expect to make great decisions before the brain is fully formed? He's got sometimes, we all hear about influences, and it's just obvious to me that G.G. Jackson has bad influences in his life. All right. Now, this is going to be out there and this is going to be podcasted, but how about the fact that my national contact knew he was going to be lost in March when he was still a projected top 10 pick? And how about the fact that he never wanted to go to South Carolina? Okay. Never wanted to reclassify, never wanted to go to South Carolina. His mom had her hand out, maybe ruined her son's life. That is from a national contact with knowledge as to G.G. Jackson and a guy who is very, 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 very plugged in. All right. And do I hear that? Do I feel bad for G.G.? Yeah. Do I hear that and say, man, maybe this guy doesn't have the tools to know how to behave in certain situations? Yeah, I do. I do feel that way. But most importantly, he still has a shot. He is with Memphis now. Gosh, I hope Ja Morant and him seem like a combustible combination, do they not? I hope he spends more time with Marcus Smart, who they just traded for, than he does Ja Morant. But he's got a shot, and they're going to give him a shot. But in the pre-draft process, he looked like a boy amongst men. He looked small and scrawny, and he doesn't have this incredible wingspan. And then during the pre-draft process, I was reading about this. His body language sucked. I was reading reports that he was winded after 10 minutes. Then it was like, well, he had bronchitis, but he was winded, and his body language is bad. And the intensity on his own workouts and his own pro day wasn't there. And you're asking these teams to invest millions of dollars in somebody who didn't have a great season last year, didn't really look the part, is getting pushed around in the pre-draft workout circuits, and then is kind of lollygagging in his own pro day, right? These teams aren't coming here for that. These teams aren't going to invest seven figures in that.
That sounds like a guy who, despite all of the negatives that you just mentioned, still believed and had somebody in his ear telling him he was a lock for a top 5 pick or top 10 pick. Well, I don't have to work out hard. I don't have to look good at my pro day. I don't have to impress GMs and coaches because I'm G.G. Jackson. They already think I'm great.
And that's where he's at, folks. That's where he's at. I'll tell you what. It's really interesting to see how this whole thing is going to shake out. What is your take on this, guys? Chris Phillips was telling me today that this is going to be used to negatively recruit against South Carolina. Hey, if you're a 4 or 5 star, why would you go to South Carolina? Look what happened to G.G. Jackson. And I said, Chris, things you and I have tweeted are used to negatively recruit against you and me. I still get screenshots of stuff I tweeted 12 years ago. Okay? Like there's idiots out there that go back and comb through your tweets and try to find anything you may have said that might be objectionable. Let's see if I can hurt him today. Everything is used to negatively recruit. But if I were Lamont Paris, I would do everything exactly the same. I would recruit G.G. Jackson. I would want him to come to my school, right? I do not consider the G.G. Jackson experience at South Carolina a failure for the Gamecocks. I consider it a failure for G.G. Jackson because his whole mantra was get millions in my pocket as fast as possible. And whether that was coming from him or his family, I have no earthly idea. I have on good faith and good contact that his family had a lot to do with this. 71307 on the text line. Let's get your texts in on this so we can share them with you on the air. Texter says, if only G.G. Jackson could be as humble as Noah Clowney from Dorman in Alabama was taken number 21 by the Brooklyn Nets. Very, very, very good dude. We'll keep it right here. NBA Draft Talk. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Brent Beard joining us at 4 o'clock p.m. If you have questions for Brent, get them in right now on the text line. We would love to have you do just that. We have a winner in our on our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. We will share that with you. We've got a new matchup for you coming up today. We look forward to sharing that with you as well, coming up on the show for your voting pleasure. Folks, we've been to open up talking about Gigi Jackson and his slide in the NBA draft. And I don't know, Diesel, to me, is Chris Phillips right to say, man, South Carolina basketball really has a black eye here? This is going to be used negatively against South Carolina. I think those are two different things. I think it's going to be used negatively against South Carolina, but I think this is entirely Gigi Jackson's problem and his entourage's problem and his family's problem. And any coach is going to take a shot at Gigi Jackson if you get that opportunity, because you don't get that chance very often, right? Why wouldn't you take a shot at bringing Gigi Jackson to your team? You can say, I've coached blue chip recruits. We have gotten Gigi Jackson here. In your guys' opinion, does this reflect poorly on South Carolina in any way? It's even though my contact said to me, Gigi Jackson never wanted to go to South Carolina, never wanted to reclassify. This is something that came from his mom who had her hand out. You know that to be true now, right? You knew that to be true anyway, because he originally committed to UNC, changed his commitment when UNC couldn't reclassify him and let him go there earlier. And it turned out he wasn't physically, mentally, or emotionally mature enough to play college basketball at that level. And now he is a cautionary tale who slid. And let me tell you, folks, the difference between the guaranteed money and the non-guaranteed money and the security that you have as a first-round pick versus a second-round pick is night and day. If he gets to Memphis and is lollygagging and has a bad attitude, that he's going to be off Memphis's team faster than you can blink. This kid is going to go from an NBA lottery pick to on a bus in the G League overnight, unless he can get his head on straight, unless he can make this click and make this happen and make this right. 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us on the show. What do you say we hear from one Gigi Jackson right here, who wants to now, Diesel, is this from the last day? He's apologizing to his teammates and coaches in South Carolina.
He was dressed up in his suit. This was from the draft.
From the draft, Gigi Jackson apologizing for things that went down in Columbia.
I want to apologize again. I don't know how much I can stress that for, how at times I looked and how at times I acted towards the coaches and even my teammates. And I want people to know that is not me. That's big-headed Gigi. I'm little-headed Gigi right now. And thank you for your support and everything. And don't stop supporting me no matter what pick it is, because, I'm bringing South Carolina on my back no matter where I go.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool, and that's appreciated, right? But how long until big-headed Gigi comes out again, right? It's nice that he's been humbled. Maybe he'll be really working hard. I'm rooting for him, not against him.
I don't believe really anything anyone says on draft day. It feels like PR to me to say something like that. It feels like, it feels like damage control. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm too cynical in this scenario, but you got to show me. Don't tell me, show me. And telling me takes 23 seconds. Showing me takes a year and a half.
Texter says at UNC, he would have had a way better supporting cast, been a year older and better, and naturally put up better statistics with an established culture. No knock on South Carolina. It always felt like a baffling decision to join a year one coach with a bad roster a year early. It did, but he was in a race to collect that NBA paycheck, man. And now the NBA paycheck, I mean, think about it this way, folks. You know, he went from a guy that was going to be making about 8 or 9 million a year to a guy making 6 figures in the second round. Okay. And all he had to do was to collect that 8 or 9 million dollars a year was to wait his actual turn, play a year at UNC, and then go to the draft. That's all he had to do. You know, my contact said he would have been a top 5 pick next year. And he rushed it. He went early. He went into a not great situation. Rookie coach, bad roster, bad attitude. I'm better than this place. Was benched. You know, his body wasn't mature enough. It's a sad story. Because he was in a race for the money, he didn't get the bag. All he had to do was let it happen in its natural course, and it would have been there for him. And it still might.
Yeah, I wonder if anyone was in his ear telling him, look, man, we're not hearing good things from GMs, from coaches. You need to withdraw your name. You need to go back to South Carolina for a year longer, grow up a little bit, maybe even transfer, whatever. Like, I want to know if anyone at all was in his ear telling him those things, or if everyone was saying, you're the best. You're the best. You're the best. Go get that bag. Go chase that money. You're going to be a top 5, guaranteed, locked, can't miss.
You don't need to be doing this college thing, man. You don't need to be doing that. Go get the bag. Here's what you can do. Diesel, I don't know what the rules on reclassification are. I honestly don't. Like, you know,
I don't even understand why it's a thing.
Right.
Age is, you know, they know exactly how many years you've been in school. They know what year you should be in high school. They know what year you should be going into college. You know, these are slanty ways for the for college programs to cheat. Get a guy in before they are ready, before they're actually supposed to be available. Just because they have a scholarship available this year, but not next year, or next year, but not this year. It feels like cheating to me. It feels like cheating, and it's dirty, and I don't like it.
Yeah, so what are the rules on reclassifying? Do you guys know what they are? You know, like, can you cram your schedule and finish early and therefore reclassify, and let's put a ton of work on my back and let's get me out of high school faster? I don't know why this is a thing. I don't know. Like, all I can tell you is I'm seeing this left and right now. Reclassify this player in football, basketball, etc., baseball. They're all reclassifying. I don't ever remember hearing that often. So did the rules get looser? What are the rules? How do you reclassify? How do you find out if you can reclassify? You know, it's the old, is it better to be the youngest kid in the grade, or is it better to be the oldest kid in the grade? And I'm going to tell you, you know, there's a real, what's the word I'm looking for? Red herring, a red flag, a warning sound for this. And I got an anecdote for you here, Diesel. I read this author, Malcolm Gladwell, right? He has, he's got all of these different books about the 10,000 hour rule, about the tipping point. And what he found when he did some research was 75% of players in the NHL in hockey are all born in the same 3 months. January, February, and March. Now, why is that? Why are they all born in the same 3 months? And I actually looked this up, and he was right. In Canada, all of the hockey all-star cuts, like the cuts, when I was in school, it was August was the cutoff for your birthday. If you were born before August something, you had to go in the previous grade. If you were born after August something, you could go in the next grade. The cutoff is January 1st for them. So if you're born January 1st, which makes sense, it's a new year, right? So if you're born after January 1st, you're in the next year. Well, the kids, January, February, and March are the oldest kids in that year. And so what happens is when they're 5 years old, they're naturally the best because they're 20% older than the kids born at the end of that year. And so those kids get selected early, placed in the all-star camps early, and it becomes an advantage that just compounds over a period of time.
It just seems like something Canadian parents would do to try to get pregnant in March or April so that your kid is born first thing in the new year. So that they can go be great hockey players.
Right. So that like your kid has an 8-month advantage over another 4.5-year-old that he's competing against. Now imagine you're Gigi Jackson and you willingly erase that advantage. You willingly say, no. I don't want to be best ever in my own grade. I want to be pretty good in the next grade. Well, what happened? You were drafted as though you're pretty good. You weren't drafted as though you were great. And he blew it. And I always, that's one of my favorite anecdotes, man, because it's like, man, that's really unfair for those kids like born in June or July. That's really unfair. But what they do, they get them in the all-star camps ASAP.
That's a good onside or offsides Canadian addition.
Yeah.
Is intentionally attempting to impregnate your wife in April or May so that she has a January, February, or March baby, just in case they go on to be great hockey players.
That's it. That's it. Like I've said to like it's always been my feeling, Diesel. I was one of the youngest kids in my grade, and it sucked. And I was small for my age anyway. I would have been small for the grade before me. I was tiny for the grade that I was in, and it sucked. And I've said to my parents, why didn't you keep me back a year? Like keep me back a year and like let me not be the tiniest kid in class getting pushed down the stairs and getting bullied all the time and everything like that. It's an advantage because your brain isn't fully there yet. Your body isn't fully there yet. And then you get placed in either honors classes or AP classes relative to the people you're in a class with.
You ever see the movie Almost Famous? Great rock and roll movie where the mom didn't tell her son that he was actually 2 years younger than he actually was.
Yeah.
So he thought he was 13 or 14, but he was only 11. So now he's an 11-year-old going to high school with 14-year-olds. And it just puts him at a social disadvantage because he's 2 years younger than everyone else. At what point, and we have texters here saying my kid's a sophomore in high school and he's that close to being able to graduate. So we just want to push him. And I'm not direct quoting you here, texter. We just want to push him to get him through this as quickly as possible. Well, what disadvantage? I understand what you think the advantages might be of doing that. But what disadvantages are you setting them up for? Because now going into college potentially or whatever else they might do for the rest of their lives, they're going to be, 2 years younger than everyone else who's in their same grade. What does that do to them mentally and psychologically and developmentally, where you're not there with kids your own age? You're constantly the underdog. You're constantly the small kid. Like, it has to have an effect.
Well, I'll tell you what it's done to me. Honestly, guys, I'll the Gigi Jackson effect, reclassifying, going with kids that are bigger, faster, stronger than him, made me get bullied. And it made me grow up in an environment where like peers, guys were the enemy. And honestly, guys, it's something in my adulthood that I had to work through in therapy. I remember it. I'll bring you into therapy sessions here. Okay. I remember as an adult saying to a therapist, my relationships with girls are so much better than my relationships with guys. Why is that? Well, girls get to see the lighthearted, funny, caring side of me. And with dudes, I'm so damn competitive with them. I want to beat them at everything. And then I want to let them know that I've beaten them at everything. And like, that's been something that has been a challenge for me my whole life. And it stems from me being small, tiny, a pipsqueak, getting pushed down the stairs, getting bullied. It's been really, really difficult for me to shake that. In order to get past that, it had to get to the point where I didn't view dudes as a threat anymore. I didn't view dudes as like dangerous or as like the gender that's going to harm me, right? But it required a lot of work. Requires a lot of work, and it's something I deal with even to this day. And it all stems from being the smallest kid in class, being the youngest kid in my grade, and being bullied and being pushed around. And Gigi Jackson is learning this very, very difficult lesson right now. That text you started reading, Diesel, he says he could, and just finished his sophomore year, he could graduate next year as a junior if we let him. But we're going to go ahead and have him take several dual credit classes his senior year that will carry over to college. Another problem here is there was a guy in the NBA draft, Diesel, and it came out and it was trending on Twitter. He had a 5.34 GPA. How the hell do you get a 5.34 GPA? What did you graduate with? I graduated with a 3.3.
Like a 3.83.
Okay.
Yeah.
3.83 for you.
How do you have above a 4? That's supposed to be the maximum you're able to get.
And now they have AP classes, which is 5, and then they obviously had some other bonus point thing there to get over a 5. And guys, to your kid, texter, who I appreciate you sharing in and letting us know about your sophomore kid. Another problem I can tell you as a teacher is that, like, they pass everybody. They give grades to everybody. I never had a kid make worse than a C in my class, ever, because it was made hell for me if I did, right? Like, it was hell on my plate if a kid had a worse than a C in my grade. So it's never been easier to get an A or a B, right? It's never been harder to fail. And their job is to get kids through school to where they can pursue their passion. It is now frowned upon for a school to have a kid with under a 2.0 GPA because it's like you're preventing him from going to college. You realize that? You giving him under a 2.0 GPA. No, he didn't do the work. They don't look at it that way.
Well, the world needs ditch diggers too.
They don't look at it that way. And it's never been easier. And that's the problem. Texter says the issue with Gigi is not Gamecock basketball. I don't think it can be used against the Gamecock basketball program. So it says Spur Daddy. Spur Daddy, it was great to see you on the Spurs Up show earlier today. Texter says, Mark, I know a few people who are teachers at Dorman, and they have all said he was a really good and nice kid, that Gigi. I really hate that they let people get into his ear. Same. If you have the credits to graduate high school and have the test scores to get in and accepted to college, you can reclassify, I think. So says JD. But JD, the issue is it's never been easier to do that for all the reasons we just mentioned, right?
It's the same reason we say, wow, why are there so many 4- and 5-star guys? Because they're increased. It's not like there's more talent than there ever has been. They're just grading the same talent more highly. So a guy that should by all rights be a 3-star is now a 4-star. A guy that should be a 4-star is now a 5-star. Because you know why? It sells magazines. It gets people on Twitter talking. Oh my God, we're about to sign a 5-star. Well, no, you're about to sign a 4-star. Really?
And Diesel, to take this to the next level of conversation, to the next layer of this is something also that is an issue with the way we cover sports. Okay? I told you my contact today didn't want me to share who this was from because he didn't want to be associated with piling on a kid. If you watched the NBA draft last night, the 18th pick in the draft, they have you convinced he's going to be an NBA Hall of Famer. Didn't used to be that way. It used to be like, man, I think he's going way too high. I think I've got real maturity concerns about this kid. Now it's like they feel like it's their job not to be critical of a kid, right? I'll give you an example.
Yeah, I couldn't watch the draft last night. The entire thing was a puff piece.
The whole thing. Diesel, I'm reading right now, and bear with me here, guys, the grading every team's draft. Kevin Pelton, ESPN senior writer. Now, if you had, what's the curve called, Diesel? Is it the bell curve or whatever? That where you have an even number of every grade, So there's 30 teams in the NBA. If you are grading this accurately, you're going to have 6 A's, 6 B's, 6 C's, 6 D's, and 6 F's. if you're going to have an even appropriation of every letter grade.
Well,
right?
a bell curve is a higher frequency of the ones in the middle.
So that's not the one I'm talking
No,
about.
you're not.
But an even appropriation, right? That's what I'm talking about. How many D's and F's do you hear here? Here are the grades for every team: B, B plus, B plus, B plus, B, 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 A minus, A, B plus, D. There's one. C, B minus, B plus, B, B plus, B, B plus, B minus, B minus, A minus, A minus, A minus, A minus, C plus. See what I mean?
I think they be phoning it in.
This, you know as well as I do, that not all those teams had A's and B's. History will show that all those teams did not have A's and B's. You know? So it's the same problem it's pervasive throughout society. Let's hand out a trophy. Let's give everyone a trophy. It's okay. You can do it. Well, look what happened to G.G. Jackson.
Everyone's being told that they're great. None of them get that kick in the ass. They don't believe in me. I have to work harder to get to where I want to be. You don't have those great perseverance type of stories. You know, you don't have that team that was drafted, that player that was given a D grade coming out of the draft saying, oh, well, I wasn't going to let that be my story. I came and worked my ass off, and look at me now. I'm an all-star.
That's right. It's absolutely right. Texter says, thoughts on Hunter Tyson going to the Nuggets? Look, man, I thought that was a heck of a pick. Hunter Tyson was a guy, and I was reading mock drafts yesterday that wasn't on a lot of the mock drafts that I was seeing yesterday. So are you saying, well, did Denver reach? I don't think so. I don't think you call it a reach when a guy is taken in the second round. And imagine the fit for Hunter Tyson. You know, they took Christian Brown last year, the athletic guard from Kansas, and he ended up being a key piece for them. They're going to lose their backup point guard Brown to free agency. He opted out of his $6.8 million deal. And imagine the opportunity for Tyson, Hunter Tyson, to get a role on the NBA champion team, right? Like, imagine that. He impressed with his shooting and energy at the NBA draft combine. In other words, everything G.G. Jackson wasn't doing, wasn't having the energy, was getting pushed around. If the Denver Nuggets want you, you know, that's a great place to be. And the Denver Nuggets wanted Hunter Tyson. I think that's outstanding. We've got some other draft takes for you to get to here. Our takes on the Charlotte Hornets pick of Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson, Victor Wembanyama, and so much more here to come on a Friday episode of Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. You're listening to the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark Ryan and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. We've got Heisman Trophy voter Brent Beard joining us at the top of the hour today. Do you have any questions, college football related, for Brent? He will be joining us about 10 minutes from right now. Texter says, let's see here. A lot of high school football linemen get held back a year to get more size and bulk. Been going on for years in football crazy towns like Gaffney. Texter says, not a bad idea. Not a bad idea at all. Texter says, I was a straight A student and I make damn sure his grades are good and his work is on an A level. I do not believe in padding grades. I can log into the parents portal and look at all of his assignments. Good for you, Texter. Texter says, that's a part of our enabling society we live in. Kids can't take any criticism anymore. They have to be fed unicorns and rainbows. Makes me sick.
That's true. We haven't taught kids how to fail. That is the biggest thing that school systems are not teaching kids. School systems, parents, life in general. We're not teaching kids how to fail and how to deal with failure.
We've got questions coming in for Brent Beard, which is good. The Charlotte Hornets selected Brandon Miller last night. I would have taken Scoot Henderson. Look, folks can say, well, Mark, you already have LaMelo Ball. Well, guess who else said that? The Portland Trail Blazers. They said, we already have Clyde Drexler, so we're going to take Sam Bowie. And guess who they passed up? Michael Jordan. Are you saying Scoot Henderson is Michael Jordan? Come on now. You know I'm not. But I'm a big believer in taking the best player available, regardless of position. It made sense for the Trailblazers to take Sam Bowie. They couldn't get Akeem Olajuwon. It made sense. They had Clyde Drexler on the wing. This makes sense for our lineup. Does it make sense 30-something years later? No, it doesn't, does it? Can you imagine passing up Michael Jordan to draft Sam Bowie, all because you already had Clyde Drexler, right? Doesn't make any sense at all. Brandon Miller was announced as the number 2 pick last night. Here's what it sounded like.
With the second pick in the 2023 NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Brandon Miller from the University of Alabama.
Here's what it sounded like in Charlotte from Hornets fans.
2023 NBA draft, the Charlotte Hornets select Brandon Miller.
No.
Why do you think that was the reaction? Why do you think that was the reaction, Diesel? Is it because the young lady lost her life? Is it because
it's a massive display of immaturity, of all the controversy surrounding the guy? Yeah, I understand it.
Mitch Kupchak he's the president and GM of the Charlotte Hornets, was asked about that very reaction. Here's what Mitch had to say.
Respond to fans who might have a negative opinion about this pick for whatever reason.
Which arena?
I mean, there were a lot of boos in the stands.
In this arena here? No, I'm not aware of that. It's news to me. At the end, there was 100% consensus. Like I said, Brandon was, a player. Although it came down to 2 players, and it wasn't the easiest of decisions, but he was the player that we felt all along would be the best pick at number 2. And there was a lot of spirited discussion. But at the end of the process, everybody was on the same page and everybody supported each other.
I'm not so sure about that. It doesn't sound like Charlotte Hornets fans are in love with that decision. They got the second choice yet again. It's not about, guys, anybody who tells you that Brandon Miller's the right pick because of LaMelo Ball, go right to the example of Sam Bowie and the Trailblazers. Okay, Jordan wasn't the right pick because they already had Clyde Drexler. You take the best player available. You worry about the other stuff later, okay? If Scoot Henderson ends up being an all-star guard, then you have 2 all-star guards, LaMelo Ball and Scoot Henderson.
Or you get to sell off that other guard, your old point guard, while he still has some goodwill behind his name.
Yeah, 100%. You can always deal with that later. Guys, you wouldn't believe how far I take the draft the best player is available philosophy. I was on the air in Atlanta, and I bagged the Atlanta Falcons for taking a center, Peter Kahns, when Russell Wilson was available. And in Atlanta, people said to me, who the hell takes Russell Wilson when you have Matt Ryan? They needed a center. They drafted Peter Kahns. And I'm like, I want to make sure Seattle doesn't get Russell Wilson. Okay? I want to make sure they don't get him. Years later, what would have been better if the Atlanta Falcons had Peter Kahns, who didn't make it in the league, or had they prevented Seattle from landing Russell Wilson? Who's better, Russell Wilson or Matt Ryan? Probably Russell Wilson. That means I can trade Matt Ryan for a bunch of picks, right? So that's my feeling about that. All right, we've got Brent Beard, Heisman Trophy voter, coming your way next, right here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate. good, everybody? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. I know you have a ton of choices out there. I truly appreciate you guys making us part of your afternoon each and every day. We could never do it without you. Enjoyed the spirited discussion, kind of a societal discussion. About kids putting bad information about people putting bad information in kids' ears, about the decision G.G. Jackson made, and how it resulted in him going from a lottery pick to being selected in the middle of the second round. You got the sense he was kind of fortunate in the end to be drafted at all. Joining us right now is a wonderful friend. He is a Heisman Trophy voter. He has been texting me about the College World Series, and he joins us right now on the show. So, Brent, I want to bring you into my dilemma here, okay? And we've asked our audience this question. I hate, Brent, bandwagon fans. I hate the action. Gamecock fans in our area accuse Clemson fans of bandwagoning. He said you never saw so many Clemson fans than before they began their run. And so, Brent, in all honesty, I didn't go to a single Gator baseball game the whole time I was at school there, okay? I've never been into the postseason until this year. I am a bandwagon fan. Now, I have been getting into this, and my dilemma, Brent, is I don't know if I'm able to, when Florida wins this title, and I think they will, they've played 23 fewer innings than LSU has. Do I get to claim this title, Brent, or not? I don't think I do. What do you think?
I would disagree with that. I think you can be glad to jump on board. There's plenty of room, and you can. As a matter of fact, they really need to let you to start the parade. I think that'd be appropriate too. So with your life-changing, award-winning show that you and Diesel have, I think that will be quite appropriate. I think they'd be glad to do that. And look, after last night, don't we need a night off so we can get our blood pressure back in normal and rest our hearts a little bit?
Brent, if you happen to find yourself in Omaha over the next couple of days, would you be buying the purple Jell-O shots or the orange Jell-O shots?
Probably depend on how much salt and sugar were in them right now. I will say I'll go with the purple probably.
He's going with the purple over. Oh, wow, they've been buying a ton, man. So, Brent, what do you? How do you size up this matchup? Obviously, the Gator arms are much more rested. Who's got a better lineup? What does this say about the SEC that a team that everybody had as the consensus number one, Wake Forest, is not actually going to the final game?
I think it's indicative of the talent that you've got in the league. I mean, mercy, it's going to be fascinating to see how many of these guys on both teams are drafted. I think Gator fans had to be elated that although I think they wanted Wake Forest to win simply because they thought that LSU, even look, I get all the Wake Forest is the number one seed. They've got their own future Major League Baseball pitcher. But at the same time, man, LSU just has dudes, and they hit it out of the park at any moment. Skeens is not the only guy who can pitch. That's going to be a really, really tough matchup all the way around. So, I mean, I certainly wasn't surprised that LSU won. Mark, I'm curious if you got nauseated at some point at the LSU chant that went on pretty much the entire ball game, did it not?
Sure did.
But look, Kevin O'Sullivan solely can coach, can he? I mean, it's just they've done a fabulous job, frankly. And look, you've got to have a little bit of luck. I wonder if y'all have discussed this too. I don't care whatever you win. and you're playing for a national championship, you've got to have just some good fortune. And Florida did by being in the bracket side that that they did not have to play Wake Forest or LSU early on. That doesn't cheapen what Florida has done by any stretch of the imagination, but that is going to be a really, really, I think, incredible series. But I'll say this, because Skeens are likely pitching Sunday, Florida needs to win tomorrow night, don't they?
Brent Beard, First Coast News. Brent, we had Brad Crawford of 24/7 on the show with us yesterday, and he told us from everything he's hearing that the ACC's grant of rights is pretty unbreakable. Despite the Magnificent Seven's attempts to find a loophole to get out, it's pretty rock solid. But he also told us that in his mind, UNC to the Big Ten is going to happen if they can get out of their grant of rights, and that NC State would be his prime target if he was the SEC's expansion guy. Does all of that hold water in your mind?
Well, there was also an article out just a few days ago that involved North Carolina and Virginia to the SEC whenever that move was made. And I give Pete Thamel credit for it, because Thamel was one who was quoted in there. And that was there. And now, obviously, he said North Carolina and Virginia coveted heavily by both the Big Ten and the SEC. Now, again, I'm sure we've got listeners here who are thinking, well, what's the big deal with both those schools? Well, the big deal is, again, when you're looking at expansion, you've got to look at the big picture. It's not just what have you done in football and how many championships have you won. That this is brand. This is certainly where you're located in North Carolina and Virginia, and the population you've got in those areas. And guys, we say this a lot, and it falls on deaf ears, but whether we like it or not, it's just the reality that the SEC presidents and chancellors will like school. I'm not saying these two, but they will like schools in the Big Ten, for that matter, as Diesel said, like North Carolina, Virginia. I think you probably saw NC State in there too, because of the academic reputation that these schools have got. And that's a part of this we can never forget.
Now, Brent, at what point does the SEC start pivoting their mindset away from football powers to winnable football games for its football powers, who also happen to have elite basketball? You know, you can't keep inviting top 25 teams in and have everybody win 11 games. It's mathematically impossible. You'll have programs that are used to winning 10 games a year who are now suddenly going to win 8 games a year, and those fan bases aren't going to like that. So, and the SEC made massive strides over the last year or two with their basketball product overall.
Yes.
So at any point, does the strategy shift from let's kind of cool it on making our football such a gauntlet and try to make our basketball more of one as well?
Well, I still think that they will continue with this improvement in basketball. And you look at the NBA draft last night. You look at the talent that they're recruiting right now, the coaches that are coming in, Beard coming into Ole Miss and what he's capable of doing with that. I think with the expanded playoff, though, Diesel, the reality is they feel they can still get in 3 or 4 football schools, not just one, not just 2, but 3 or 4, and I think that will pacify, even though they may not win the games that they think they should. And I agree with that logic. Not everyone's going to win 10 or 11 games, but I mean, are we going to get some 9-3 schools who are in the playoffs at that point? And if that happens, that will certainly pacify those fan bases because they're in the playoffs.
Brent Beard joining us here on Offsides. We are the Fan Upstate, Brent, there has been, I was listening to Joel Klatt interview Nick Saban, and I've got a couple of jumping off points on this. Did you hear Saban's take that, look, if we were favored over the teams in the playoff, 3 out of the 4 teams in the playoff, why are we not in the playoff? And I defended Nick Saban to a point. The results have to matter, Brent. That's the beauty of college football, is the results matter. At the same point, Saban is saying we play a much harder schedule. We lost 2 games at the very, very end on the last play. Where do you come out on Saban's statement that if we would have been favored over Michigan and TCU and Ohio State, why weren't we in the playoff?
Well, I mean, you still got this situation where, and I get the debate and I get the argument at that point too. I mean, would they have played better in the playoffs than several of those teams possibly? But I mean, when you've got 2 losses in conference, that's going to be hard to overcome. And you also got a situation where you virtually had to win against Texas A&M on the last play. Folks may forget that too, but the reality of it is, again, with things changing the way they are, if the playoffs would have expanded a couple of years earlier, even with those 2 losses, I think Alabama would have been in last year in a 12-team playoff.
Brent Beard joining us here on the show. Brent, to Joel Klatt's point, taken to the next level, he says, look, is there enough parity in college football? Through 9 years of the CFP, Brent, we've had only 14 playoff teams, which is incredible because there were 36 spots available and only 14 teams occupied them. Among those teams that have not yet made a berth, who is next to crash the party? Please say Florida. Please say Florida. Please say Florida.
Well, look, I can tell you this, and I'm on television tonight here in Jacksonville on First Coast News, and frankly, that's going to be one of my points, is the way they're recruiting right now. Florida's 4th in the nation in Rivals.com in recruiting, which is something their fans did not believe they could do. But in the course of a month, that is something that has snuck up on them, and that has certainly happened too. So I'm not discounting that. Although, and the thing that's in their favor, and I'm sorry to keep bringing up the playoffs, but just the reality of it is that the playoffs benefit a team like Florida because right now Georgia is the cream of the crop. Frankly, in the East, although after this year we're getting rid of divisions. Now, to your point, I still think that we're probably going to have the main 4 teams or 5 teams who have the best rosters, and that is Alabama and Georgia and Ohio State. And I frankly would throw Clemson in there on most years. I think when we get down to the Final 4, a lot of that may not change altogether, but at the same time, guys, because you've got the best rosters, you got the best players, and oftentimes that proves out. I'll throw a team out there right now that everybody's in love with. Is Penn State. I mean, could Penn State be a team that would that you could count on? I don't think it's going to be Southern Cal, although people love Southern Cal because they don't have a defense that could stop the 3 of us and whoever else is in the station right now. And could you also? I would also throw in there the improvement with Florida State and also the improvement with Utah because with this expanded playoff, you're going to get a Pac-12 representative if there's still a conference. I think over the next few years, yes.
Brent, could you give me one player, one coach, and one program that you believe are being undervalued going into this season?
I would probably say undervalued would be, I'll go with Utah again, and I'll go with Cam Rising, their quarterback, because if he's healthy, listen to this, Mark, if he's healthy, and we don't know that because you remember he blew out his ACL, when that guy's when he's going well, he's one of the better ones. I mean, he won the Heisman Trophy. I'm not saying that, but at the same time, I'm just really impressed with that club altogether. And Whittingham's done a tremendous job with them. I think he's very undervalued, and I kind of hate to give all three of them to Utah, but right now I think I'm just in the mood to do that. How about that?
Sounds good to me, man. Sounds good to me. Although you didn't make me feel better about the Gators' chances of beating them coming up here to start the year.
Well, I think we both think still that for Florida, this is going to be a 6-6, 7-5. Shane Matthews, my partner on the podcast, former Gator great, thinks they're going to be 8-4. I think most Gators would sign a contract for that right now at this point. So, but anyway, I just want to know tomorrow night, will there be a Gator banner? Will there be a Gator hat? Is Mark going to be sitting on his favorite side of the couch? It will move if the Gators aren't hitting the ball or aren't pitching well. I'm going to be fascinated with the superstitions that are followed this entire weekend. Okay.
Well, we got to find out if our local Ingalls markets, who are great friends of the show, will make him fried gator bites.
Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah.
I think that'd be quite appropriate. I really do. Absolutely.
Brent Beard joining us, Heisman Trophy voter, First Coast News. Brent, can I get your official order of finish in the SEC East?
Well, we can try. I'm going to go with, obviously Georgia. And then after that, probably Tennessee. 3, I'm going South Carolina. 4, Kentucky. I'm going with Florida at 5, but I still think that could be higher. And then Missouri and Vanderbilt. How about that?
So Florida 5th, and you've got South Carolina ahead of Kentucky there. South Carolina 3rd in the East.
Yeah. I think that might be possible. I was nowhere near impressed with that Kentucky offensive line last year. That they almost ended Will Levis's career. Fortunately, I'm being facetious there, but you know what I mean. It was just an often injured offensive line that could not protect him whatsoever, ever at that point either. But that could be a close call. I mean, I won't be shocked if Kentucky's 3rd, frankly, but that's going to be a pretty good race, guys. I can tell you for 2nd and 3rd in that division.
Brent, question coming in from our very own Spur Daddy. He says, ask Brent what he's heard about where the Jaguars are going to play when they completely redo their stadium. I've heard the Swamp and Daytona Speedway. What are you hearing, Brent?
Yeah, basically the same. And if people haven't heard that, the Jaguars are redoing their stadium in the next few years. Georgia and Florida they're playing there this year, and they've got an option to play through 25. So when they do redo the stadium, where do they play? I think logically it would be in Gainesville. There has been actually some talk about Daytona Speedway and what they would have to do to get that ready to play. And they don't give up on Orlando either. And look, this is a big deal for these venues to have Florida, Georgia, and the Jaguars. You can imagine, even for a couple of years, And guys, I won't be surprised at all with you if Atlanta and Mercedes doesn't bid them to have it 1 year too.
Brent Beard, Heisman Trophy voter, will be watching tonight, pal. Thank you so much for your support, your friendship, and all you do for us. So good to catch up with you, bud.
Craig, and congratulations again on number of shows, and the notoriety grows. And again, to let people know that if they listen to this show, it can be anxiety easing, life changing, and thoroughly thrilling. Also, how about that? Is that okay?
Well, I'll tell you what, Brent. I'll tell you what, buddy. This show, you said notoriety, which means famous for something bad. Okay, so infamous and notoriety. That's absolutely what we've done here. Okay, absolutely. Mother Teresa, we are not in the upstate. Great to catch up with you, buddy. Have a great weekend. All right.
Take care, guys.
All right, take care. Our buddy Brent Beard. Really, really good stuff. Always do appreciate him. All right, coming up next, my friends, we have got your brand new, freshly minted Upstate's favorite athlete bracket matchup to share with you and the winner to announce. That's next. This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. Everybody, it's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. Great to have you guys with us on a Friday edition of the show.
I loved seeing 5 people jump into our YouTube stream like the moment we turned it on.
Oh,
that was
awesome.
great.
That's awesome.
Madcraft, Spur Daddy, JD, all of you guys jumping in there. Do me a favor. Hit that little share button. I don't know exactly what it looks like on YouTube or how you're viewing it, but hit that share button and send it to a buddy of yours who likes sports right now.
Guys,
see if we can get them to watch the stream as well.
There you go. Guys, coming up at 5:20 today. I'm excited about this, Diesel. I have put together college football playoff standings, okay? So I've created a point system by which we can measure which teams have been the best in the college football playoff era. I was devising this today. The standings are now completely and totally up to date. I'll even give you a little primer as to the point system here, all right, that I will be revealing the standings at 5:20 p.m. I have given each school 3 points for a college football playoff berth, all right? 5 points for a college football playoff win, and 10 points for a college football playoff national championship. So let's say you make one playoff. LSU, for example, has made one playoff, and they have one national championship. That's 18 points, Diesel, because they get 10 points for winning the Natty, they get 5 points for winning a game, and they get 3 points for making it, right? So 3 points for making it, 5 additional points if you win the game, and then 10 points if you win the national championship. What are the all-time college football playoff standings? I'm going to reveal my own proprietary system coming up at 5:20 p.m. this afternoon. But, my friends, it is time for us to do a little jam with you. It is our Fan Upstate's. Why do I always do that? It is our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. And we had a good one yesterday. Yesterday was the first one that I felt surprised to say that got a little heated, if I'm honest with you. To me, and there's a lot of other people that ended up showing up on social media that felt the same way. Who the hell is voting for Adam Humphries over DeAndre Hopkins? Well, it turns out that the folks that were voting for Adam Humphries might have had a little bit of a character concern on DeAndre Hopkins because DeAndre was tied to smearing human excrement on hotel walls around the time that he was drafted, was it? And so that was a check against DeAndre Hopkins in some people's eyes. All that is to say, ladies and gentlemen, the results for Adam Humphries and DeAndre Hopkins are in, and we are proud to announce that DeAndre Hopkins has, in fact, prevailed in the poll. Twitter was having none of the Adam Humphries hype. It was 86% to 14%, but quite a few people on the text line. On the text line, it was far closer to 50-50 yesterday, and Diesel and I were just wondering why. How could that possibly be? How could that happen? You're entitled to vote for who you want to vote for, and you're entitled to do so without persecution, okay? And perhaps you felt like I persecuted you for voting for Adam Humphries. I don't want to do that. I want you guys to vote. I don't want you guys to be afraid of voting, all right? You don't even have to put your names on your votes, right? Nor do you have to give an explanation. You don't have to do any of that. But we will debate the votes that come in. We most certainly will. It is time to get to today's vote. And we are excited to share with you what we have coming up here today. Out of the Hall of Fame region, it is number 1 seed, Shoeless Joe Jackson. Against number 8 seed, the PGA Tour golfer, Bill Haas. Shoeless Joe Jackson, all he did was have a career batting average of .356. He was a 1917 World Series champion. He has 792 career runs batted in. He hails from Pickens against Bill Haas, golfer in his 40s, son of Jay Haas, got up to the number 12 player in the world, and has a top 5 finish at a major, the 2017 U.S. Open. Now, Diesel, we did have some points against DeAndre Hopkins for the rumored excrement smearing episode, which is just the grossest thing I ever heard in my life, that potentially happened in a hotel room.
It's a weird person that plays with doo-doo.
We all know that Shoeless Joe Jackson was involved in a scandal that has seen him kept out of the Baseball Hall of Fame. And I'm wondering if in any way, shape, or form, how that hurts Shoeless Joe Jackson here today. Can you guys do me the solid? All right, I want your votes, and I want your votes in mass right now at 71307 on the text line. Just put that number into your cell phone, 71307 on your text screen. Put the word fan as the first word of your text, and then give us your vote, either Bill Haas or Shoeless Joe Jackson. For those of you who are familiar with the scandal from Shoeless Joe Jackson, all right, what can you tell us about that? What is your take on that? What is your feeling on the Black Sox scandal here in the Upstate?
Well, I think what's really important here is that in the investigation, Joe was proven innocent. He didn't have anything to do with the cheating, though he's still been banned anyway. I'm trying to find it here, but I know that his stats were on par, if not better, than the way he had performed the entirety of that season. So I think we're in a situation where the rest of the players on the team threw games, and he didn't. He performed as well, if not better, than he had all season long. So it was proven that he did not cheat, even though the rest of his team cheated.
Diesel, he was acquitted. O.J. Simpson was acquitted. But let's read what we've got here. Okay, let's read. I'm going to read this from Wikipedia. Let's draw our conclusions here. After the White Sox lost the 1919 World Series to the Cincinnati Reds, Jackson and 7 other White Sox players were accused of accepting $5,000 each, equivalent to $84,000 in 2022, to throw the series. In September 1920, a grand jury was convened to investigate the allegations. Jackson had 12 base hits in the series. That was a record that was not broken until 1964. So he committed no errors, and he even threw out a runner at the plate. Does that seem like a player who's cheating? It was alleged that Jackson admitted to participating in the fix during grand jury testimony. Some news accounts quoted this as, "When a Cincinnati player would bat a ball out in my territory, I'd muff it if I could. That is, fail to catch it. But if it would look too much like crooked work to do that, I'd be slow and make a throw to the infield that would be short. My work netted the Cincinnati team several runs that they never would have had if we had been playing on the square." That precise quote does not appear in stenographic record of Jackson's grand jury appearance. In 1921, a jury acquitted Jackson and his 7 teammates of wrongdoing. Nevertheless, Kennesaw Mountain Landis, the newly appointed commissioner of baseball, imposed a lifetime ban on all 8 players, quote, "Regardless of the verdict of juries, no player that throws a ball game, no player that undertakes or promises to throw a ball game, no player that sits in a conference with a bunch of crooked players and gamblers where the ways and means of throwing games are planned and discussed and does not promptly tell his club about it will ever play professional baseball." So there is a dispute over this.
Do you know why the White Sox of 1919 were called the Black Sox? They're not called the Black Sox because they allegedly threw a series. They're called the Black Sox because Charles Comiskey, the owner of the White Sox at the time, stopped paying for laundry services to pay for the players' uniforms to get washed, and told them, if you want clean uniforms, you're going to have to pay for it out of your own salaries. Well, they all said, screw you, we're not paying to clean our own uniforms. So they played in dirty uniforms. That's why they're called the Black Sox. They were called the Black Sox in the middle of the season.
Well, the other thing is, Diesel, I don't know if you know this about Black Sox, but they don't show dirt. And you
Also
can
true.
play in those. They're going to stink to high hell, but you could wear those 10 times and they still won't show any dirt. So, guys, there is major dispute about this. Jackson remains on MLB's ineligible list, which automatically prevents his induction to the National Baseball Hall of Fame. In 1989, Commissioner Bart Giamatti declined to reinstate Jackson because the case was now given to historical analysis and debate as opposed to a present-day review with an eye on reinstatement. And it's sad. I'm looking at a picture here of him talking baseball with Babe Ruth. It's awesome to see. It doesn't seem like he would at all oppose to this in any way, shape, or form, right? It didn't seem like he would participate in this. I don't get this. I don't get this at all. All right, guys. Bill Haas, Shoeless Joe Jackson. All right. Who is your vote? If you are hearing me say this right now, my request is we need you to send in your votes. 71307 on the text line is where you can get to us on the show and text us your vote. Start your text with the word fan. Are you voting for Bill Haas or are you voting for Shoeless Joe Jackson? Get your votes in right now, please, if you would be so kind. All right, my friends. What teams this year are you really hoping wear the L? The teams that you love to see lose. 2023 College Football Edition is coming your way next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark, Ryan, and Diesel, and we are the Fan Upstate. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate. So here we go, my friends. What teams in 2023 are you hoping wears the L? You know, and I realize that I'm opening myself up here because a lot of you guys might be thinking to yourself, Mark, I really think Florida's got it coming to them this year. And you'll probably be right. And you might delight in that. You know, so a lot of these things, like I know Clemson fans, you always want South Carolina fans to lose. I walk to your games from the media parking lot, and I've never seen a scene like this. You have got your generators hooked up to TVs under tents with a Gamecock game on them. You know, like as a Florida fan, I don't want garnet and gold Florida State colors to be seen anywhere near me. Yet Gamecock fans are filmed in their cabooses, their cockabooses, with orange in their cockaboose because they got the Clemson game on TV. Clemson fans are seen with garnet under their tents because they've got the South Carolina game on TV. We understand, right? And I get, and I totally grasp that you want your hated rival to lose every single game. I'm also curious, what other teams do you want to take the L this year for a very, very different reason? Okay, and this isn't necessarily a consistent hate that you have. It's just something that's based on how the situation lines up this year. Okay, who do you want to wear the L and why? I want Ohio State to lose. I love when Ohio State loses. I think their fans are very, very ornery a lot of times, Diesel. I want to see what it's like when Ryan Day is under immense pressure and they're talking about firing a coach who has like a 900 winning percentage because he doesn't make the college football playoff and because he loses to Michigan. All right. I want Tennessee to wear the L this year because I feel like, you know, they have one good year and everyone wants to crown their ass, channeling my inner Denny Green that you guys know so well.
If you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Yeah, you guys always want to crown them. I don't know why. And for me, Florida State is a rival. I obviously want them to lose, but more so because I just feel like they're entirely overrated, and I do not feel like they have a roster that is capable of winning a national championship. And also, Diesel, I would say that I would love to see Texas continue to bumble and stumble entering the SEC because, I don't know, maybe I'm a bad person. I like seeing bad things happen to rich people. You know, I'm not happy that the people died in the submarine explosion, but if it's not a fatal thing, I like seeing bad things happen to rich people. Texas is the richest school.
Yeah.
I love it that they can't buy wins. I love it that they can't buy national championships. However, try they might.
So for that very reason, I want to see the hiring of an offensive coordinator experiment fail at Texas A&M. I'm done with Jimbo Fisher. I'm done with his like twitchy, quirky, always feeling like he's just like, you know, he's hopped up on too much caffeine anytime he's doing a press release or a press conference. I'm just done with Jimbo Fisher. Somebody's going to hire him. He's going to get another big time job somewhere, you know, like at a second tier or third tier college football program as a head coach, or hell, I don't know. Maybe he'll go be on Nick Saban's staff. I don't know. Another one, and this one's going to come out of left field. I want to see James Madison fail.
Ooh.
I want to see James Madison fail because this is, number one, a fan base that's already posting message board topics. Are we the best football program in the state? You've been at the FBS level for 1 year. 1 year. And you're already like, are we the best in the state? And they're like, yeah. They're sniffing each other's farts. They are loving the concept, the idea of being the best football program in the state of Virginia.
Diesel, before you just said that word, I didn't know what state they were from. Okay. Massachusetts, Virginia would have been up there. I had no idea.
On top of that, James Madison has attempted to circumvent every single rule of transitioning from FCS to FBS. They wanted to make that transition as quickly as possible. Normally, it's a 2-year transition. They make it a 2-year transition to give you 2 years to get up to your scholarship limit. That also is like a postseason ban. You can't go to bowl games if you are in your transition period. I don't understand why, because you're at a disadvantage. If you're at a scholarship disadvantage, let's just say in year 1 you go from 63 to 75, and with 75 scholarships and your first year at the FBS level, you're still good enough to go to a bowl game. Yeah, you should get to go to a bowl game. I don't understand why. It's not like you're stepping down from 85 to 63. That's an advantage. You shouldn't be able to go to the FCS playoffs if you step from 85 to 63. But they make it a 2-year transition rule for a reason. And James Madison has petitioned the NCAA at every step to try to get out of all of these requirements that every other school that has transitioned from FCS to FBS willingly accepts. They all go through it, but James Madison is too good for that. So they gotta speed things up and whine to the NCAA, which the crazy thing is the NCAA used to always be, one of the most rigid organizations. What did the coach come up? He's non-caring a-holes of America.
Yeah.
What was his name? Jason Brown. Okay. Jason Brown said on this show, he called the NCAA the non-caring a-holes of America. They always were non-caring. Like I love that scene in We Are Marshall where they're petitioning the NCAA to allow them to play freshmen because they needed everybody they could get on the field. And the NCAA turned them down like 7 times. Said, no, you can't play freshmen. No, you can't. Like, how the hell do you expect us to field a team if we can't play freshmen? So I want James Madison to get theirs.
Diesel, I appreciate you not including Florida on your list, but I will say that I do think if Florida's like 1-4, a wry smile will come to your face because you will know that you're going to have a chippy Mark Ryan on the show with you, which kind of makes the show better. It does. If I'm in a mood, it's going to make the show better. Guys, my list is kind of, a couple others on my list here, Notre Dame and USC. If I said to you, what do Notre Dame, Texas, and USC all have in common? They're all the spoiled rich kid program. USC, ton of money. Texas, the most money. Notre Dame trying to hold up NBC, the network, for $75 million a year to carry football that has not been great.
Well, for the same reason, you should want UCLA to fail, right?
I think UCLA is kind of the vibe is they're the redheaded stepsister of USC in football.
Yeah, but they are also involved. They didn't have to leave the Pac-12.
That's true.
They could have stayed. They could have said, USC, good riddance. Go make your mistakes. Go fly to East Rutherford, New Jersey if you want to. We're not going to be a part of that. But they piggybacked. They got in the car.
Coming up next, folks, we've got the top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the upstate, Offsiders, the top 5 at 5 is coming your way next here on Offsides. What's good, my friends? This is the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides. Mark, Ryan, and Diesel. We are the Fan Upstate, rolling on until 7 p.m. today. Ladies and gentlemen, I know I do this often, but I thank you so much for making us part of your afternoon. It just means the world. It means the world. You've got podcasts and you've got YouTube video streams, of which we are on right now. Hi, guys. You've got 4 afternoon drive sports talk shows in the upstate for you to tune into us as consistently as you are. That's why we work so hard to earn your trust, right? If I were you guys, you know, my MO would be the same way I treat other businesses. You know, I would give us conditional loyalty. Right? Not unconditional loyalty. I only give that to my family and my friends and my wife and my pets. Those are the only ones who get unconditional loyalty. You know, how loyal would you be to your pizza shop if they stopped having good pizza? That's conditional loyalty. They provide you a good service. You're loyal as long as they do. If you give us conditional loyalty, we give you a good show. You're loyal to us as long as we do. That is all we could ever ask of each and every one of you, and we love you for it. 844-FAN phone, that's 844-326-3663 is the number to get to us on the show. It is time for us to do that jam. We call it the Top 5 at 5, the top 5 biggest sports stories of the day, the top 5 topics we're discussing. Ladies and gentlemen of the Upstate, Offsiders, the Top 5 at 5 starts right now.
And now, the Top 5 at 5.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hit it.
5.
At number 5, the College World Series final matchup is set, and I'm kind of bummed, to be honest with you. You know, I wanted Wake Forest, because if you lose to Wake Forest, I don't have anything against Wake Forest. I applied to Wake Forest.
Nobody does.
No, the Wake Forest doesn't really cause harm to anybody, right? But LSU just furthers this rivalry, and I'm tired of Florida finishing second to LSU.
Wake Forest is the Paul Rudd of college athletics. Like, you're like, oh, that's great. You know, like him. He's all
on
right.
all the cute movies. They're kind of funny. They got a cute story, all that. Nobody hates Wake Forest, just like nobody hates puppies, right? So I'm upset that Wake Forest lost last night. Here's how it went down. Wake Forest initially tried to score on a squeeze bunt attempt, and that did not go as planned.
Field his position. Here it is. There it is. The push. It is fielded. Here's the play at home. The tag is made. And this is called Trey Morgan. He came charging like a train and didn't hold it for a second.
How about that? You will get nothing and like it. And then the game ends by way of this.
And he hung one. Did he get it? Did he get it? Yes, he did. Tommy Tanks walks it off. And the LSU Tigers will face the Gators in the finals.
You know, like we all know the SEC is king in football. We all know that the SEC uses that money to fund other programs. But I don't know, folks. It's just getting a wee bit predictable, if you ask me.
The SEC is the live golf of college athletics.
Oh, that's brutal.
How does that make you feel?
No, come on. Come on. But seriously, though, you know, the teams ranked 2nd and 5th are in the College World Series final. The 3rd-ranked team was Arkansas. They got eliminated by TCU. Where is number 1? Where is number 4? How did you guys allow this to happen? By the way, where can you hear the College World Series? Right here on the Fan Upstate. All weekend long. Saturday game, Sunday game, if necessary, a Monday game. We cannot wait. Next up.
4.
Victor Wembanyama goes number 1 in the NBA draft, and not Scoot Henderson, but Brandon Miller goes number 2. Brandon Miller selected 2nd overall by the Charlotte Hornets, and let us hear from the Hornets fans on how they feel about this selection.
2023 NBA Draft, the the Charlotte Hornets select Brandon Miller.
It's funny every time.
You know, Diesel, I'm wondering, I'm sitting here asking myself, are they mad about Brandon Miller or are they just mad that they're Hornets fans? You know what I mean? I think it's the latter, right?
Best color scheme in the NBA, worst ownership in the NBA.
No doubt about it. But I feel like they're saying, well, whoever we draft is going to suck because that's who we are and that's what we do. So, they'd boo Michael Jordan himself. It's crazy. But, would those really have been applauses if it was Scoot Henderson? I got the sense they were booing just being Charlotte Hornets fans. Now, I got to be honest with you. I would have taken Scoot Henderson with a second overall pick. I have fewer character concerns with Scoot Henderson. I get a level of explosivity from him. And I don't really buy the excuse that people always use. Well, no. You already have LaMelo Ball, so Brandon Miller was the right pick. Folks, you have to make the determination who is the best player. Okay? Screw positions. Who is the best player? Take that guy. If you think Brandon Miller is the best player, take Brandon Miller. Okay? But the whole, well, you didn't take Scoot Henderson because you already have LaMelo Ball sounds a hell of a lot like we didn't take Michael Jordan because we already had Clyde Drexler. That is the reason why Portland selected Sam Bowie second in the Hakeem Olajuwon MJ draft. They already had Clyde Drexler. How did that work out? You take the damn best player available. You figure the other stuff out later. If LaMelo Ball and Scoot Henderson are duplicates of one another, you figure out a trade at a later date, but you always take the best player available. Scoot Henderson was that guy for me. I hope Brandon Miller works out. I think Charlotte got a guy with a lot of ability and quite a few character question marks. Speaking of which, next up,
3.
At number 3, GG Jackson. The character concerns there fell all the way out of the first round. And I have a little bit of a scoop here for you on this. I spoke to a national personality on college basketball in March, was texting with him. And he said to me, it's a shame what happened to GG Jackson. Had this not happened to him, had he not reclassified, gone to South Carolina, he'd have been a top 5 pick next year. And I asked him if I could share that using his name, and he said, no, man, I don't want to pour salt in the wound. I almost tweeted something last night and decided against it. He doesn't want to pile on an 18-year-old kid. And he said to me, he said, I don't know if I told you the story, Mark Ryan, but GG Jackson never wanted to reclassify and never wanted to go to USC. He said his mom had her hand out and possibly ruined her son's life. A couple months ago, GG Jackson was a projected top 5 pick. 1 month ago, he was a projected top 10 pick. Fell all the way out of the first round into the second. How? He had poor body language at his workouts, at his pro day. Poor body language. Was sucking wind. Was not in shape, right? Didn't have a great last year for South Carolina, and it was one that saw him benched and disciplined for prima donna behavior. This is a kid who is responsible for his own poor decisions, but I feel bad for him that he's got people in his ear that are not shooting him straight, right? That are telling him how great he is, that are trying to get him to the NBA as fast as possible so the family can collect on the paycheck. Had he gone to UNC and had he been a freshman at UNC this coming year, I'm told he would have been a top 5 pick in next year's draft, but he rushed it. He made a bad name for himself, and now he's middle of the second round.
There is a little something to be said for people whispering in his ear, but ultimately GG Jackson is the one who made that decision to reclassify early and to go to South Carolina. Even if he had negative influences that caused him to make that decision before going to South Carolina, While at South Carolina, he had nothing but positive influences around him, coaching staff, other players, professors, advisors, et cetera, and he was still making bad decisions. He was still a bad teammate. He was still bad in the locker room. He was still lazy and unfocused. So it begs the question, were the parents and advisors who were telling him to go to South Carolina really the reason why he went to South Carolina, or is he the reason why he went to South Carolina?
Yeah, I'm hearing that it was mom is the reason why he went to South Carolina. And I do believe, Diesel, that at that age, your parents make a lot of your decisions for you. But to your point,
is mom the reason he was a jerk while on campus?
No.
There you go.
No, not at all. His mom is not the reason, and nor do I feel like this is a bad reflection on South Carolina. You know, if you're Lamont Paris, you want G.G. Jackson at your school. It's not your fault that he slipped in the draft. G.G. Jackson is the reason that he slipped in the draft. G.G. Jackson is the reason he had a poor attitude. G.G. Jackson is the reason his body language sucks, right? That's not on South Carolina. And I know that there are schools out there that are going to use it to negatively recruit against South Carolina. Hey, you're a blue chip. Come to Florida. Don't come to South Carolina. You saw what happened to G.G. Jackson over there. Went from a lottery pick to middle of the second round. It's not on Lamont Paris. It's not on South Carolina. People use everything against everybody. You should see what they use against me. All right? Doesn't mean Lamont Paris made the wrong decision. Doesn't mean the Gamecocks basketball program has a black eye. You want a blue chip at your school. It opens the door to more blue chip recruits, and it will do the same for one Lamont Paris. You know, G.G. Jackson, he reclassified to where he was one of the younger guys in his class, and in the pre-draft combine, he looked like a boy amongst men, and that's why he fell. He still has a chance to be great, but imagine for a moment, folks, that he did all of this. He was in a race to get to the NBA. It was all about what can get me to the NBA the fastest. Whether that was coming from himself or his family, I'm told his mom has a handout for money, okay? But in so doing, had he been a top 10 pick, he'd have made $8 or $9 million a year. In the middle of the second round, he's making six figures. That's it, okay? Some of you listening right now are going to make more money a year than G.G. Jackson is going to make next year. All he had to do to get that $8 or $9 million was to stay in his rightful class, go to North Carolina, and come out next year after a freshman. Shows you, folks, you shouldn't be in a race in life all the time, man. You know, there's 50-year-old dudes who work 75 hours a week so they could retire when they're 50. Then they have a heart attack at 52. The lesson is don't be in a hurry and enjoy the journey. Next up.
2.
Our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket is alive and well. Yesterday, more competitive than we anticipated. But Adam Humphries fell to DeAndre Hopkins as DeAndre Hopkins advances in our Upstate's favorite athlete bracket. Today's matchup for you, out of the Hall of Fame region, my friends, is a beaut. It is number 1 seed, Shoeless Joe Jackson out of Pickens against Bill Haas, the golfer, out of Greenville. Who do you got?
This one will also close out the Hall of Fame region.
It will.
Because Pete Maravich advanced past Sidney Rice, Michael Roth advanced past Sheila Foster, and DeAndre Hopkins advanced past Adam Humphries. So this will set the last 4 in this bracket.
There you go. So Shoeless Joe Jackson from Pickens played for the Athletics, the Naps, and the White Sox, won the World Series in 1917, batted .350 for his career, 792 runs batted in against Bill Haas out of Greer, played on the PGA Tour, plays on the PGA Tour still, got up to number 12 in the world, best finish in a major, 5th top 5 finish in the 2017 U.S. Open. We want your votes. If you are hearing this right now, please vote for me right now on the text line. 71307 is who you send the text to. Start your text with the word fan and then let us know, Bill Haas or Shoeless Joe Jackson. Shoeless Joe Jackson also has the Black Sox scandal potentially counting against him, which could be keeping him out of the Hall of Fame. And those are today's, next up. And finally, what teams in sports, I had Diesel shuffling over there, ladies and gentlemen. What teams in college football are you rooting against this year just because? You have your reason. This is not to say, are you a Clemson fan, you're rooting against the Gamecocks. I'm not looking for your rival here. But what teams in college football are you rooting against situationally? All right. I am rooting against Ohio State this year because I'd love to see the drama of Ryan Day being on the hot seat with like a 900 winning percentage if he loses to Michigan again.
You know, there's programs all over the country licking their chops, waiting for Ryan Day to get fired just to throw tons of money at him.
Exactly. 100%. Tennessee, I'd love to see them lose because I think people have crowned their ass way too soon. Florida State, I think they're wildly overrated, and I don't think they have the talent to be a national champion, and they're my rival. And I have something against the rich kids. You know, USC and Texas and Notre Dame, it just warms the cockles of my heart when they're mediocre. And when all their money in the world cannot buy them college football greatness. Who in college football are you rooting against this year situationally? You know, you don't really have a great reason why. You just know you're rooting against them. You'd love to see them lose a bunch of games. Is it my Florida Gators? Perhaps. Please say it ain't so. And those are today's top 5 at 5. Now it's your chance to chime in, which you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-FANFONE. That's 844-326-3663. The text line is there for you at 71307. Just start your text with the word fan and away you go. You guys can get to us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. Like us on Facebook at The Fan Upstate. Follow us on Twitter at The Fan Upstate. And please subscribe to us on YouTube at The Fan Upstate, where you can see us waving to you right now. Hi. And finally, email. You guys can all email the show. Mark Ryan, that is M-A-R-C Ryan at thefanupstate.com. All the different ways you can get in touch with us here on the most interactive sports radio show anywhere. Coming up next, I'm going to unveil my point system. Who has fared the best in the college football playoff era? A proprietary point system. Say that 3 times fast. I'll share it with you next, right here on the most interactive sports talk show anywhere. It's Offsides, Mark Ryan and Diesel, and we are The Fan Upstate.
Stream, it's been fun as always. Thank you guys so much for being here every single day. Thank you for jumping in early, staying the whole show. It's incredible to see you guys being here every single day. Conversation, staying at that same fever pitch the whole time. Look, it's hard for us to keep up with what you guys are saying. You guys are going a mile a minute, and we're in the middle of hosting a show. So, we get to you guys are the show, and we get to catch little bits and pieces of it here or there. So it's been great. And again, like I said earlier in the show, please, while we're live, share the stream out to buddies of yours who don't listen to the show. And try to get them to watch and try to get them to participate. That's how we're going to grow this thing. You guys are going to be instrumental in that, in word of mouth.
Yeah, guys, thank you so very much. We appreciate you. Thanks for all the love on show number 1000 this week. It's great to be back on the stream and see you guys. And hope you all have an awesome, awesome weekend. If you could each get a few new subscribers for us, get a few new folks to subscribe, that would also warm the cockles of me out. Thank you so very much. We'll see you Monday.